So driving retention, threat mitigation, and also end user demand. How many times a day do we get end users that are frustrated that they say, hey, I changed this PowerPoint, now I can't find it, or I accidentally deleted it 3 months ago, can you get it back, stuff like that. So those are the main reasons it's driving retention. And the main options Unitrends provide we've kind of mentioned. We're going to dive into first in, first out. It's a pretty standard term and something that used to be default. It is no longer default on new systems, but most people on this call have probably had a system over I think we switched off the default on 3 to 6 months ago. But the main idea behind first in, first out is basically the backup process runs and we keep every single backup until the storage is about 80% full. That's a very rough number. Don't take that hard. But once you start getting storage warnings, what the appliance is going to do, it's going to estimate the next backup size, and it does this daily. And it'll purge out any eligible for deletion oldest backups to make space for next backups. I'm going to talk about eligibility a lot during this purging process and talking about retention. The main reason for that is the eligibility of a backup needs to be that it's not protected by some kind of policy, which I'll talk about in a second, and it can't be the master that the most current incrementals are based off of. So as you know, Unitrends, when doing an incremental forever, will build out synthetic fulls. So once a synthetic full is built, the oldest master then becomes eligible for deletion. Now, eligibility doesn't mean it's going to be deleted right away. It just means when it needs to make space, it is possibly one of the things that will get deleted. Note, you can, and I'll show you in a second, you can manually pin certain backups so they are not deleted no matter what, and you can even set up some of those settings. When the new backups run, fill it up, and the process repeats for first in, first out. You have some settings, though, around first in, first out that you can utilize. You can do minimum retention warning settings, where if your retention falls below the limit, and this is in days, so if you, let's say you set a minimum retention warning of 7 days, if you only have 6 days of retention, you'll get an alert and a warning sent to your email. It'll be part of the alert report, and that'll be demonstrated and communicated in many ways. We also have minimum retention keep report, sometimes known as a legal hold. The way this works is any backups that are less than X number of days old will never be eligible for deletion. So that means that if you're full on backup storage space and new backups need to be run and there is nothing left that is eligible for deletion, the new backups will fail. You will not be able to complete any more backups until you manually delete it out, adjust the setting, or whatever is needed. So that's a minimum keep. We do not recommend legal hold or minimum keep, but it is something that in some scenarios needs to be done. And you can set all these settings on an asset-by-asset basis. And the last one is maximum retention, and that's a warning. And basically what happens is, actually no, it's not a warning, it's a purge, apologies. What this will do is it will actively purge any eligible backups that are older than X number of days old. So if I have a max retention of 30 days, any backups that are not active masters will be purged out too. So if I'm at day 31, there's a bunch of backups on day 31, and all of them have synthetic masters, we can purge all those out. So just make sure you know that first in, first out prioritizes taking new backups over retention, barring some kind of ineligibility characteristics such as a legal hold. Backups will fail, however, if space is taken up by ineligible backups, and this is something that is common throughout. So let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick in the interface. I'm going to pop on in. Cool. So unfortunately, this one is no longer running first in, first out, this appliance, but I kind of wanted to show you real quick. We can actually see the legal hold. There's a few ways. One is to get here to the Recover tab. You can see I'm looking at the last week of backups. You'll notice I have a bunch of these. What I can do is if I want to pin or hold a specific backup, I actually check off a few of them, and I can hit this button, this hold button. They cannot be deleted by the system no matter what. It requires removing the hold to actually delete those backups. So they'll be there, they'll be good, and they will stay and hold, and that'll be that until, and the master associated with it will hold as well, because it needs to be able to recover everything from that specific backup. All that will be held until it is unheld anymore. That's one way you can set up the legal hold. Other than that, if you want to manage the retention, we'll get into that in a second, but you come over to the Configure tab. I can manage my retention policies globally, or I can select one of these individual ones, and the retention will be available down here. So I can select which policy I want to put in there, and I can choose which retention. In this case, I have actually multiple VMs associated with that host, and I can assign different retention periods, and I can actually view the retention that's being applied to each of them in the name that I've personally given them. Let me see, there might be one other way we can view the legal hold. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry, the max and min retention. Unfortunately, yeah, so we do need the retention manager because we moved over. Okay, so that's something else to note is you cannot mix and match first in, first out and long-term data retention, the next retention policy. But if you're curious about setting up the first in, first out, you'll see it's three boxes. That's max worn, min worn, min keep, and max worn. And you set the days, you check them off, and those alerts or policies will apply if you're applicable. Cool. So if we have any questions about first in, first out, go ahead and put those in there. Otherwise, we're going to move on to long-term data retention. This is a new thing that came out, I would say Unitrends said about 6 months to a year ago. It's a pretty great feature. It really enables you to do kind of long-term retention all within the storage in your appliance. Upside, very quick, easy, and effective to set up. I'll show you the configuration. Downside is that there are backups needed. So if this backups need space, but there's not enough storage to run it, it will fail the incoming backups to meet this retention. So this also kind of applies that legal hold piece to maintain the retention you set up within the interface. So the process of retention policy is created and assigned on a per asset basis. It automatically assigns backups as ineligible that are used to meet the policy, retention policy. Retention policies are calculated on a X number of days, X number of weeklies, X number of yearlies, kept for X a period of time. So you can say, I want to keep weeklies for the last 8 weeks, and you'll have one weekly backup from every week for those assets that are assigned. And once those age out, they then become eligible for purging and will be purged out. And it's a similar kind of process to make sure there's room. You will get warnings and alerts if your storage is running low because of your retention policies, and that gives you enough time to either adjust your retention policy or try to upgrade your system to make sure you have room for the next backups. Let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. So now we can finally look at these retentions. I'm going to go over to the configuration, the configure tab. Come over here and manage retention. You all see the new blue coloring that's available in 10.3.5. 10.3.6 coming out soon. I can add policy. You can see I have 3 policies. The one that's preloaded, 7 dailies, 4 weeklies, 12 monthlies, and 5 yearlies. I could do a default 10-day, where it's just going to keep the last 10 days of backups. Short, I keep the last 14. I can add new ones. So here's a new one. I can give it a name, description. So this is where I'd say for super important servers. I can see keep all the backups for the last 12 days. In addition, keep the most recent successful backup from each of the last, let's say, 9 weeks. So keep 9 weeks in addition to these 12s. Number of months, I can do 28 months. And since this is covering the past 2 years, I'm okay. I actually don't need any of the yearlies. So what this does, I can even check off forever, but that'll fill up the appliance, and none of them will be able to be purged. By default, if you want to, you can actually make everything eligible by setting all of these to 0. And what that will do is that'll have no management policy, no retention. It'll follow the first in, first out kind of idea, keep every single backup and just get rid of the oldest stuff. But I can kind of do keep all backups for 0 days and then just keep weeklies, stuff like that. You can kind of mess with this to really meet your needs of what kind of retention you're looking to try to keep. But this does take up storage on your storage appliance, so that can take up room in other places there. But it's really easy to add it. And then once I've added these retention policies, each of my assets, whether it's a specific VM or a server itself, all of mine unfortunately have other things. This file server I think is just the file server. I can come in here and I can actually, on edit, I can assign the retention policies. I want to keep it on the default 10-day. It's going to tell me which backups will be deleted to make sure to do that, or I can hold them if I want to. I can instead do none, no retention policy. What that'll do is that's following the first in, first out approach. So it's really easy to be able to configure. That's kind of the point. Unitrends wants to provide a maximum ways to be able to kind of see, set, and forget it. Cool thing about this is this can be done with multiple appliances. So if I'm replicating between two appliances, I can have one site doing first in, first out, and the other site doing long-term data retention. So I can do my long-term with different size appliances. Maybe I need a larger appliance to do long-term and just keep the last 10 days, stuff like that. Long-term data retention does tend to take up more space than first in, first out, but you get better retention capabilities out of it. You can actually view which legal hold, what your long-term retention is on each of yours. So I can see, this is the one we saw before, which backups we have. I've just had the last 10 days of backups, and it is compliant or not complying with it. So there's some backups that are outside the 10 days, which is why we're getting the false over there. Also, a min-max retention report tells me if I was using first in, first out, it would tell me the minimum retention, the max retention, and the actual retention I'm seeing on those backups. And I can also see all backups that are on legal hold. Looks like none of them right now. This would be ones that I've put the pin on. I'm saying under no circumstance can you delete them. Let's see if there's any others from the past year. It doesn't look like I have any on hold. Cool. So great information to your needs, and then you can even see, I'll show you the storage, for example. We're not using much. We're using quite a bit of the storage, actually. But as you can see, I'm not worried about this. I'm meeting my retention, and if I'm falling underneath, I can use the compliance to kind of identify what's going on, why I'm not meeting it, and adjust those or look to get an upgrade if needed. So these are all the options for keeping the data on site for the long-term retention. Now, what do I want to do if I want to copy stuff off-site, or cold backup copies? Let's say I want to do some kind of more economical method using hard drives. We can do that. Unitrends offers multiple options to be able to send data off, and they're set up as a schedule. You schedule these cold backup copies, so backups are then copied to these different media, and you can then take them off-site or build it out. The catalog is kept on the Unitrends appliance, but it's a great way to be able to take stuff off-site if you can't necessarily afford an off-site location or a DR site or a Unitrends cloud. This is a great way to do that. It's run as an independent schedule, and the options that come out of the box in most scenarios are going to be NAS, tape, SAN, or an RxDA. So any SIFT or NFS target, a LUN on a SAN. Tape drives does require a physical appliance, and the RxDA can be done. That's our rotational hard drive option. We also have a single bay hard drive dock. That's basically to take hard drives in, swap them out like you would tapes, but use hard drives instead of a tape library or something like that. These are great for customers of all sizes. Our drives range from 1 to, I believe, 6 terabytes, and the RxDA allows you to stripe across 4 of them, so you can get the 24 terabytes in an archive set, take those off-site, keep going. So you have these schedules, super simple. I'm going to come right here, show you. It's set up as a job. It's a cold backup copy job. Come here to the job manager, create a backup copy. I'm going to select the assets, so I can select applications. So here I'm selecting some Exchange servers. In my file server, I'm going to choose just the file level backup. And from here, the 2 targets. If I set up a secondary appliance, it's just going to be automatic. That's a hot backup copy. Here's an archive. I can select which types of backups I want, so every single one or just my fulls. I'll do all of them. I can choose to optionally encrypt them, email me when they're done, and choose a retention period. So by default, I'll just do the most recent backups and send that on there. Alternatively, I could archive like the last 3 weeks of backups if I wanted to. And I can also say if there's not enough room on the archive, delete older backups to free up the space, or fail the backup. So this is saying how long I want to keep them. So I want to keep it for 3 weeks. So this makes it ineligible on the archive target. Alternatively, don't put a retention period, just it's always available for deletion. only by the process of the archive. So if I keep swapping it out, those backups that are offsite are not necessarily eligible or ineligible. I then set up a schedule. So this is doing every day. Seems a little excessive. I'm going to do Friday archives, or Saturday. So I come in, no, I'll do Sunday. So that way Monday morning I come in and grab swap out the drive. I'll do it Sunday at 3 a.m., runs the archive to this target, and here's where I can select which backups I want. Do I want the last week of backups, the last month of backups? This will put the last month of every single backup on there. And then the retention period is how long is retained on that site. So it's a little confusing. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to the support team. We can make sure you get exactly what you want archived out and sent as needed. I tested to make sure there's enough space in the archive target I'm using. This is an RxDA, and it'll tell me if those hard drives in there are striped across and have enough space. Cool. So these are all the manual options. The last one I want to talk about is the Unitrends Cloud option to kind of automate this process. That's our Forever Cloud option. Forever Cloud, we've done several webinars and series on it, so I'm not going to dive too much into it. But the idea behind our Forever Cloud basically is set up a hot backup copy job to the Unitrends Cloud. We manage it. It basically means we're going to keep a kind of retention period you select. We have those retention options all on the right. It's going to be offsite, easy recovery, all from within the interface, and the retention is managed by us. You can also seed it in. We offer a rapid seed feature where you can, we'll send you a NAS or a hard drive, send that to our cloud, and then all of the data is replicated. All the data that needs to be replicated is changes. Very easy capital or management overhead, so you don't need to buy more equipment or anything like that. It's just a matter of making sure the internet is still working. Automatically, by default, it will keep automatically, and you can't really adjust this, is the last 7 days of backups, last 4 weeklies of backups, last 12 monthlies, unless you're on the 90-day retention, in which case just the last 3 months, and then yearlies up to your retention period. So the cheapest option is going to be the 90-day. The cool thing about it is the licensing is super easy to understand. It's based on the source, basically the capacity report. So however much space the last full looks like uncompressed and undeduplicated is how much we'll charge. You don't need to worry about how much storage you're using in the cloud or anything like that. It's simple, straightforward, and effective, and that's kind of our goal. Cool. So that's mostly what I got. Keeping it short and simple. It's a power half hour, I guess. But I want to make sure there's time to answer any questions that may have come up or clarify anything around Unitrends, the solution, and backup copies that we are capable of doing.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Yeah, I should have clarified that it was a power half hour. We definitely want to keep it short, sweet, to the point, because everybody is super busy. So yeah, if folks have questions, go ahead and add them into the Q&A box, and we'll be happy to answer. So we'll give a couple of minutes for that.
Does look like we have one question in the Q&A already. So I got one question coming in from William. I probably shouldn't say names. Sorry. I got one question coming in from someone. Why is a cold copy to an external hard drive limited to a 6 terabyte drive? What happens if you use a larger drive? Great question. The main thing going on with that is we've only certified up to 6 terabyte drives today. It's on our roadmap, and very soon we will have larger hard drives available in the RxDA. It's just a matter of certification and everything like that. So if you have a larger data set and you're looking to archive, let us know or keep privy of our marketing emails. We'll be announcing the larger hard drives very soon. Great question. Another question from somebody saying that 30 minutes works. I just figured out you have to click to switch to long-term retention on the older installs to activate. That is correct. We will not force an appliance over from first in, first out to long-term data retention, just because there's a lot of considerations and potentially you could lock up the appliance with the retention option. So If you want to move over to it, you can absolutely switch. Make sure you set up the retentions and watch your storage, especially those first few months. If you have any questions, though, our support team loves helping and making sure that's configured, because the nice calm phone call to talk about, hey, we need to adjust this or make sure that this is capable, versus hair raising, oh no, the appliance isn't running current backups and we're doomed. So yeah, so great point. Yes, you do need to switch it out. You click, it's under the settings and configuration. You can move it over. If you have any questions, I strongly recommend reach out to our support team. They'll be happy to help you out with that. Great question. Let me see if I have any direct me. Seeing a thank you, looking forward to trying the long-term retention in our environment. You are most welcome. The cool thing is we've had long-term retention for a while in our cloud, and by doing it with the hard drives, it's just be careful, because you're paying more for the storage on the appliance. So my recommendation is, yes, you can do it. Just use it. You don't want it to be your all-in-one, because A, it's local. So if you lose your long-term archiving and you're audited, auditors won't be too pleased that you've been keeping 3 years locally and then your appliance took a Coca-Cola to the face, kind of thing. So you do kind of want to make sure you manage both sides of that. But yeah, it's definitely something that I feel like throwing a few weeklies or monthlies in there would be stellar. Awesome, awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I think that should probably about wrap it up, Jordan. So yeah, we'll keep these and work to keep these to about a half hour. Like I mentioned, we're re-kicking off this series, so please be on the lookout for upcoming power half hours, and we'll be doing these ongoing for the foreseeable future. So we thank you all for attending today, and hope you got a lot out of it. And we've got more sessions planned. We plan to do these on the first Wednesday of every month. So please bookmark that. Be looking for upcoming invites, and we look forward to seeing you next time. So thank you, Jordan, and everybody have a nice day.
My pleasure. Take care, everyone.